Atypically, only two games, Route 16 Turbo and Challenger, were released for the Famicom in October of 1985. However, something else happened that month that made it one of the most significant months in Nintendo history. On October 18th, the Nintendo Entertainment System was released in the United States. Nintendo had been looking to get the Famicom in the United States since 1983, even talking to Atari for a possible distribution deal at one point. Nintendo developed several prototypes for the US version of the Famicom, but US retailers showed no signs of interest. Eventually, Nintendo settled on the boxy, gray design that we all know and love. There were some design changes made. Famicom and NES cartridges were not compatible with each other, and US cartridges had a lockout chip that would prevent unlicensed games from being played on the machine. The controllers were now detachable, making them much easier to replace. Additionally, the microphone found on one of the Famicom controllers was scrapped. Unable to find anyone interested in distributing the NES in the United States, Nintendo decided to distribute it themselves, starting off with a test market of New York City. The original bundle available featured the console, ROB, and the light gun. The system sold quite well for the holiday season of 1985 in New York, around 90,000 units, thus prompting Nintendo to try to market in other cities, starting with Los Angeles in February 1986. 18 games were available on the launch. The 2 ROB titles, the 3 light gun titles, Super Mario Bros., Mach Rider, 10-Yard Fight, and numerous older titles are all available. The cover art was changed for all of these releases. Gone were the typical cartoony drawings on the front of the Famicom boxes, replaced by blown-up sprites from the games themselves. Over the next year, Nintendo released a handful of titles for the system, including some of their back catalog titles such as Urban Champion and Donkey Kong. Finally, in October of 1986, a few titles from outside developers were released in the United States, starting with a few from Bandai. Then in November, Capcom released a couple titles, such as 1942 and Ghosts and Goblins. Nintendo had some very strict rules regarding the licensing of titles for the NES. In order to assure consumers of the quality of the product, in the United States, every game for the Nintendo had Nintendo's seal of quality on it. Of course, this didn't stop a lot of terrible games from being released. By fall of 1986, the NES was available nationwide. It was a huge hit and was the hot item for Christmas of 1986. By the end of the year, it had sold 1 million units. Home video game consoles became popular once again. Nintendo totally dominated the field in the US, and within a few years, video games were once again a multi-billion-dollar business.